I am Naomi Yoder. I am a GIS data manager and a researcher at the Bullard Center for Environmental and Climate Justice at Texas Southern University. And I'm so honored to be here. I feel so inspired by all of you and by all of you attending. So thank you. So I wanted to talk about pollution and chemical disasters on the Gulf Coast. Hurricanes and disasters are a common occurrence on the Gulf Coast. And the Gulf Coast is also, as you've heard and some of you know very well, home to the largest industrial corridors in the country. Again, as several people have mentioned, you can't understand this until you see for yourself. It's like nothing you've ever seen if you don't live around it. These areas, I'd like to name them. They're areas like the river parishes or Cancer Alley in southeast Louisiana on the Mississippi River, and then greater Lake Charles in southwest Louisiana. And then in Texas, we have Port Arthur, Beaumont, the Houston Ship Channel, greater Freeport, and Corpus Christi. Texas and Louisiana combined account for over half of all polluting petrochemical production in the United States. Half. 8 out of the 10 largest oil refinery chemical complexes are on the Gulf Coast. The Houston Ship Channel area alone is home to over 600 oil and gas chemical plants, accounting for 44% of the nation's petrochemical production. With all of these oil and gas facilities come extraordinary pollution, hazardous waste, which is often injected underground, and land loss. In addition to the operating facilities, there are tens of thousands of used and abandoned oil and gas wells across both states and the Gulf of Mexico. And the legacy of racism on the environment on the Gulf Coast is rampant, with the same chemical corridors and pipelines occupying neighborhoods where people were enslaved. These same facilities also occupy indigenous lands, communities of people of color, and areas with lower monetary wealth. This all exists in an area of volatile weather and hurricanes, all of which are getting to be more intense and more frequent due to climate change. Along with the most lax environmental regulations in the country, disasters make the Gulf Coast a recipe for climate and environmental injustice. Myself and my colleague conducted a study of pollution incidents following Hurricane Ida. The pollution in southeast Louisiana from Hurricane Ida was extraordinary. Hurricane Ida was a Category 4 hurricane about 200 miles across in 2021. We found thousands of records of pollution, most of which had no information about what was spilled or how much. Of those, we found about 150 that actually listed some kind of chemical. For those, a total of 5,550 barrels of fuels and oils were spilled. The actual number is easily 10 to 20 times that. And if we do the math, and we just said 10 times that, that would be 2 million gallons. 2 million gallons of fuel and oil spilled. As for air pollution, we found about 730 tons of toxic pollutants were released, which is certainly more than would be considered safe or normal. However, this number is also even more pronounced of an underestimate, as air pollution is not reported or tracked in a disaster in Louisiana, despite, after Hurricane Ida, the air being choked by sulfuric fumes, black smoke, acrid taste. These releases were clustered in the river parishes, which are composed of largely Black and low-income populations, and in what we call the bayou parishes, which are areas of large indigenous Louisianans. Another study showed that during Hurricane Harvey, air pollution, and after Hurricane Harvey, air pollution exceeded 2,900 tons, more likely, the most likely of which were to be in Hispanic and poor communities. Flooding from Hurricane Harvey was worse in Black neighborhoods. These numbers are shocking, and what's even more shocking is that they're not out of the ordinary. Chemical disasters during a weather event or otherwise are an all too common occurrence in our industrial corridors and in our beleaguered communities. There are hundreds of spills and releases every week in Texas and Louisiana. From chemical transport trucks to explosions at a plant to dozens of plants spewing pollutants at once in an extreme weather event, Fenceline community members are all too accustomed to massive pollution incidents. And what's more, the normal background is a license to pollute. We are told to stay inside or limit our driving. And while individual actions do matter, this is certainly not just to be suggesting that we individuals need to change a system with our individual actions that is rigged, and the people that suffer the most are people of color and those with lower incomes. And this situation is not limited to the Gulf Coast. Environmental justice and racism is embedded into the fabric of this nation from colonization onward. The validation of one person owning another as currency or wealth happened through the banks, enabling the enslavement of billions of people in this country. It is high time that the banks and the financial system take responsibility for upholding human rights and make real anti-racist policies. Isn't it true that clean air, clean water, self-determination, these are all basic human rights? There's no reason that city should, oops. Thank you, Freud. There's no reason that cities should continue to finance this war on poor people, people of color, and the environment. Thank you.